Hello out there, Tullahoma. This is Lyle Russell, your Community Engagement Officer, and we are back with another episode of the Tullahoma at Work podcast. And it is my great pleasure to have our guest today in studio, Ms. Cheryl Rhoads, the Animal Shelter Manager. Is that the correct Animal Shelter? Okay, great. Welcome, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we got some fun stuff to talk about, and I know you've watched some of the episodes, so you kind of know a little bit of what I'm going to ask you, but you know the first question, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so here we are. The ice cream tub comes out, and it's Neapolitan. What are you going for?
Strawberry.
That's an excellent choice. I will not argue with that at all. I'm surprised. I'm sure you've heard it, but I'm surprised at how many people don't. And I'm like, were you not a child? Were you not a kid at one time?
Well, as a child, I probably would have went for chocolate, but as an adult, strawberry.
Yeah. They do say tastes change as you get older. So, yeah. So, no, the real first question will be, tell us your Tullahoma story. Tell us how did you come to Tullahoma and then you came to work here with the city as the Animal Shelter Manager? What's your Tullahoma story?
Okay. So I'm originally from Charleston County, which is literally the smallest county in Tennessee. I live in Hillsboro on Woods Reservoir, moved here with my husband, and I started out working in Tullahoma at a groom and board facility, Happy Tails.
Oh, yeah.
And
okay.
So I worked there for a while, and then I'd taken some time off and actually got an email about the position open for an animal control officer in Tullahoma for the city. I applied, and due to some of the experience that I'd had with Happy Tails, working with dogs, grooming, behavior, things like that, I got the job. So I started off as animal control officer and then just kind of moved on up from there.
Awesome. So you started as an animal control officer and then got promoted in the position.
Yes.
Oh, very good. So you used to work at Happy Tails. So I know the ownership has changed, but the owners, when I first moved here back in, when was it? 2007, I think. We took our dog there to board it one time when we were going out of town. And I remember I asked them, what's the most unique animal that you've ever had anybody board? And your experience may be different, but I remember at that time they told us that a bear cub was the most unique animal they ever had to board. And I thought, wow, that's really bizarre because, being a wild animal, I'm sure there was some very specific circumstances behind that. But they said, yeah, they had to board a bear cub one time. So when you were there, what was your most unique animal? Well,
it probably would have been mine because I started, did the interview process, got the job, and then it was lambing season. So I had a bottle baby.
Oh, yeah.
And Jules, the owner, Robin Jules called me and told me I had the job. And I was like, great. And I was like, but I have a lamb that I'm having to feed every few hours. And she's like, oh, just bring her to the kennel. And so I brought her, and she shared a kennel, and she had this big stuffed horse that she'd cuddle with, and then I could feed her throughout the day. So that was a good part of that job.
Yeah.
But other than that, they'll do like guinea pigs and parrots, birds, such like that.
My son had a I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's like the miniature potbelly pig, and they used to board him there quite a bit.
Yep.
So yeah, it's you never know, I guess, what you're going to find there. So, but so on that vein though, so now being down at the Tullahoma Animal Shelter, you probably get all kinds of calls about all kinds of strange things. What are some of the more unique animal calls you've gotten that you can remember?
So really, we're only permitted to do domestic animals.
Right.
With a lot of people don't understand that we can't trap wildlife because we're not permitted. We're not licensed to trap and relocate wildlife. So we'll get some calls for those. We did have the one falcon call, which I've discussed with you.
We're going to talk about that one in a minute, but go ahead.
Okay. I guess my favorite one would be Christmas Day. I'll normally work Christmas, give the staff the day off. And Christmas Day, I think it was 2023, I get a phone call from Officer Jones. And all I can hear, I pick up my phone, and I just hear this screaming, this pig in the background, just screaming her head off. And Officer Jones is like, hey, are you at work today? So I go out there, and where the pig is, and then he's got her on a slip lead, and she's just fighting him and screaming her head off. And I go and kind of bear hug this pig and pick her up and put her in the truck and go off. So
Merry Christmas to you. Huh?
Yeah, no, and you're not permitted to have swine in the city limits, so of course no one would claim this pig. So,
I see. So. I can only imagine, because also being in the wildlife business outside of work, we get some very unique calls too. So it's hard sometimes to educate the public on what there are limits to the laws, like you said. You have to be permitted for wildlife and that sort of thing, and it's a hard thing to go through, and not a lot of people do it. And so when you have a wildlife issue, you think, oh, call the animal shelter, but sometimes that's not the best route to go. So obviously your love of animals had to start early. So what kind of pets did you have when you were growing up? What did you have?
Growing up, we had just kind of the regular livestock, cows, horses, emu, goats.
Yeah, because
dogs and
everybody's got
cats.
an emu laying around. So
Well,
yeah.
Well, I had an emu as an adult, and which I lost. I lost him last year, unfortunately.
Aw.
But he had Escaped one day, and Miss Rosie, that works at the police department, she lives not far from me. And Harold, the emu, he was over in her field, like eating her husband's turnips, and she said he was on his tractor, and he looks out, and he said, "There's this giant bird out here," and he's just looking through the window. So.
Did you get any calls about Ed the zebra when you were?
I did not actually.
Okay.
But
We didn't know if we had any Ed sightings here. I know Christiana's not that far away where they ended up finding him. So that would have been I'm kind of glad that we didn't have to deal with that. I can only imagine how difficult that would have been.
yeah, I believe he's in Texas now.
Yes, I saw an article recently that said they moved him. So, but now, so you had pets as a youngster, but now that you're an adult, you said you had an emu recently, and I know you've got some other unique pets too. What's some of your other current pets that you have?
So we keep a lot of arachnids, tarantulas, tailless whip scorpions. I've got some parrots. I guess my most unique, completely permitted and legal, is a raccoon, which I just had to renew my permit. They expire in June of every year. Completely legal, not wild caught, domestic.
Right.
So I guess she would be my most unique. But a lot of people don't like the tarantulas or the spiders or the tailless whip scorpion, things like that.
Right. They're fascinating to me, but I just don't want them on me. I'll look at them all day. I'll get face to face with them, but don't put them on me.
Oh, yeah, no. They stay in their enclosures, and they don't want to be on you. I mean, they...
Yeah, I would imagine that everybody's always said, they're more afraid of you than you are of them. I don't know. I could put that to the test. Well, yeah. When I was a kid, this is a horrible story, but when I was a kid, and some people out there may be able to relate to this, I was getting up, getting ready for school. I lived with my grandmother at the time, and I got up, and we lived in Florida, and in Florida, no house seals upright because we had those old jalousie windows, they're almost like louvers. So you couldn't seal anything up. And so we would get bugs in the house periodically. And I remember one morning putting my shoes on, there was a big brown house spider that was in my shoe. And when I was putting it on, it ran out of my shoe up my pants leg. Now, you've never seen a fat kid move so fast in your life, but that experience, granted, he didn't want to hurt me. He was terrified, I'm sure, but that instant terrified me of spiders. I can't do it. I'm good with them. I just don't want them on me. So how did you get over that fear? I mean, you obviously have them.
I don't think I've ever had a fear of spiders. Growing up, like my favorite spider was the big kind of garden spiders, the orb weavers that we have here in Tennessee. Yeah. I also like the jumping spiders, which some of my staff do have a fear of spiders, or they did. So I remember
you corrected that
when Chris first started. he tells this story to everybody. And he was like, "Don't knock down her spider webs," because he was cleaning one day and I came through and I was like, "Hey, where are my cellar spiders?" And he was like, "What?" I said, "Where are my cellar spiders? Their webs are gone." And he was just like, "It was a spider web. I cleaned it." And I was like, "No, no."
So it's the animal shelter and arachnid shelter sometimes.
We also have blue-tailed skinks and the red-throated skinks too. The red-throats live at the front of the shelter, and the blue-tails live in the back towards the kitchen in and out of there.
They know where the food is. So,
they know.
Well, so that brings up an interesting question, and I've worried about this a little bit with the birds that we have in our backyards. So you have the blue-tailed skinks, and I have heard, and this is maybe just folklore, but I have heard that some lizards like that are potentially poisonous to animals if they ingest them. Have you ever experienced that?
Not anything with the skinks.
I know some frogs are.
Yeah, and we have like some toads and stuff that come through. Normally in the summer we'll have the little gray tree frogs in the kennel, and we take those, and we do take those out of the shelter because the rescue and chemicals that we work with might hurt their skin when they come through. But we do move those. But we've not had anything like that.
Okay, as I know, I had a dog once that did eat a toad. That was one. I guess I forget. It's got like a red patch on its back, and they said that's the one you really have to stay away from. I don't know my amphibians very well, but so yeah, I wondered if you ever had any issues because you're not far from Rock Creek over there, where the animal shelter is. So you probably have a little bit of an aquatic environment that creeps in sometimes.
Oh yeah, we've got that little. There's the creek that's behind us, and so we eat a bit of everything down there at the animal shelter. You know, the deer come through in the afternoon. Chris one night called me and he said, "There's a coyote down here," and I was like, "Well, yeah, Chris." And he said, "I thought you were kidding." And I said, "No, they come out at night. We're right here with the woods." He said, "Well, what do I do with the dogs?" I said, "It's going to be fine.
Yeah,
they're just going to go on.
Keep them in the fence; they'll be okay."
Yeah, they're going to go on.
I had one of my dogs. If a coyote came around, he went nuts. So we had to be really careful with that. Where I lived in Estill Springs when I first moved here, we would have coyotes run through the yard periodically, and I'm surprised that my dog didn't go through the window trying to get out there. I don't know if it was trying to go join them or go after them, but they would howl and just carry on. Then my dog would start howling and barking, and I lost a set of blinds, from the clawing and trying.
Oh, we've given up on blinds.
Yeah. It's funny. You drive by houses and you can tell the houses that have dogs because the blinds look like this when they're folded in on themselves. So I've been down that road before. All right. So the bird rescue. So I still have the photo.
Oh, you do?
I do. You texted that to me the day that this happened. And I'm going to put it on the screen here so y'all can see it too. So tell us about this bird rescue.
So we get this call for, they said there's a falcon. It's been hit in the road. They didn't know what kind it was. They just said it was hit. And I'm like, well, maybe it's just stunned. And so I believe I called you first to see if there was something you do. Because again, wildlife, I'm not permitted, but I know that you are. And so we went out there to get him. He's just kind of dazed in the road. And I, thinking there's no way this is going to happen, I was like, "Come on, buddy." And I stick my hand out and he just hops right onto it. And that's never something you want to do with falcons.
No, it's
because
not.
they have and luckily he didn't. But he just went in and like all the talons went in. I was like, "Oh, I've messed up." And so the ACO that was with me, I was like, "Could you bring me a towel or something that we can gently wrap him and hope he decides to let go?" And luckily he did.
I know when you sent me that picture and I saw him sitting on your hand like that, I thought, "Ooh, I hope he didn't dig in because that's going to hurt."
Just a little bit.
We get a lot of kids when we go do bird programs. Like, "Can we pet the birds?" I'm like, no, because this is what can happen.
And I knew better, and I thought, there's no way. And half joking, "Come on, buddy, hop up." And he went for it. And I was like, well, I offered and you accepted, so that's on me.
Well, you got spiders and scorpions. The little red-shouldered hawk isn't going to be much different. Yeah. Although it may not inject any venom in you, but that's okay. All right, so animal shelter stuff. So you adopt out dogs all the time. And I know you have a very robust adoption program. So if you could, for the folks who may be thinking about adopting or looking at the process, walk us through what is the process of, I can't just drive up and say, "Hey, I want a dog," and it jumps in and you leave. There's a lengthy process to this. What's the process? And
so we've cut it down a bit. Our application page is now just one page. We get some information from you. Where do you live? Do you have current dogs? Who's your current vet? And do you have a landlord? That's really important because we do call the landlords. A lot of them they won't say specifically they can't have a certain breed of dog, but they'll say nothing over 35 pounds. That'll rid you of your Dobermans, your Rottweilers, German Shepherds, Pit Bulls, things like that.
Right.
Because if we let you adopt a dog and you get it home, your landlord finds it, "Hey, you can't have this dog," well, then he ends up right back with us, and that's stressful on the dog to go back and forth.
Right.
We do contact vets to make sure that you have, at the minimum, your state-required rabies vaccination. If you have distemper, parvo, bordetella, if you're on prevention, that's wonderful. Those get to the top of the adoption list because those are the people that understand and they're taking care of their dogs. Sometimes it's just a matter of education, and we do provide that, and that's wonderful. So we'll have people come in, we take them around, we kind of get a feel of what they're looking for, what their lifestyle is. They have children, cats, things like that. And then we'll we'll show them the dogs, tell them a little bit about their stories, who they are, and then kind of go through our minds of who do we think would be a good fit for this individual and this dog. And we let them meet. We'll come out to our meet and greet area or our play yard. If they have a dog already, we encourage them to bring their dog down to the shelter, and we'll go to one of the more neutral yards and let them meet together. That's still a bit stressful because there's a lot of smells, a lot of sounds at the shelter. And
I think you also have to have dogs that get along with other dogs in that situation because not all dogs do. So.
And so we work to get play groups together too. But so we kind of have in our head who can play well with others, who doesn't, which it's not just because a dog won't play with another dog. That's not immediately, hey, this is an unadoptable dog. Not all people like all people they meet. So I don't expect every dog to like every dog it meets.
Right.
So we go through that process. They fill out their application. We do our checks. And as long as everything's great, we schedule. We like to do a foster to adopt. That way you take the dog, you go ahead, you don't put any money down on it yet. Tullahoma still owns the dog. The dog goes into the home. We generally do it for about a week. If they need a bit more than a week, we just check in. We're like, yeah, that's wonderful. We want you to be comfortable. We want the dog to be comfortable. Any dogs in the home, we want to be comfortable. So we do the foster process. If it works out, they come back, they sign the paperwork, we get our picture, and they get all of the dog's medical records.
That sounds pretty easy for the most part.
Yeah.
But it is a process, and you do have to start it from start to finish. You can't just pull up and say, hey, I want that one, and jump in and go. So, and that's good because, like you said, they have to get used to the home, they get used to the people. And if there's other animals, I think that speaks to a good thing that you and your staff do down at the animal shelter is that you have to get to know these dogs' personalities because when you, for lack of a better way of putting it, when you assign them out, either to other play groups, other dogs that they get along with or don't get along with, the people that want to foster, you have to know these dogs. So what's the process like for that? How do you get to know these animals? What do you do?
So some animal shelters just give their dogs a number. We name every single dog that we have. They come in the system.
Do you ever call them the wrong name? Like kids?
Yes.
Whatever your name is, get over here.
So each of the ACOs have an assigned side that they work. And so they're responsible for those dogs on that side. And then we alternate the old shelter as well.
Okay.
So each of them is interacting with the dog every single day. We do positive reinforcement training. So when you take the dog out to the play yard, every dog gets out to the play yard every single day. They have human interaction. Even if they're in a group, they still see us. And then they get their treats when they go to the yard. They get their treats when they come in. They normally have to sit. We try to teach them all at least sit, the basic sit command. So we're interacting with them, and you kind of get to know a bit about them. But it's also the ACO's job, the animal control officer, the dogs that they are responsible for on their side. They report back, hey, I noticed, Phoebe's got a limp on her front right paw. Things like that. And then when we're doing the play groups, you kind of get to know everybody. The personalities will come out. Who likes to fetch? Who's going to go outside potty and then sit at the door because it's 90 degrees and he wants to come back inside? That's
a dog who likes air conditioning.
They are very used to their air conditioning.
Yeah.
And so when we go out to adoption events, our dogs just kind of melt. And so we have to do most of them inside if we're doing an outdoor event. Like, hey, we bring buckets, we bring misters, we bring ice, and if they're still not doing well, we'll either move inside or we'll take them back home because they're used to it, and we want their comfort to be first.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you mentioned that I know that you do 2 adoption events a month. Tell us about those.
So the first Saturday of every month, excluding this Saturday because it's the 4th of July weekend.
Right. Holidays do interfere with the schedule a little bit.
We're at PetSmart the first Saturday from 11 to 2. And then the third Saturday of every month, we are at Tractor Supply from 11 to 2. And that's every single month, unless we have canceled twice because we've had a puppy come in with parvo. And at that point, we're on lockdown and nothing goes out because we don't want to risk putting anything in the community.
Right.
That's only happened to us twice, and both puppies made it, fortunately.
Oh, good.
So we have a pretty high rate of survival with parvo.
That's really good. So I would imagine you have to have a pretty good relationship with a vet's office or maybe with more than one. So.
We do. We use multiple vet's offices. For parvo, mainly we will just use All Creatures because they will actually hospitalize here in Tullahoma. We've used the one in Manchester as well because they'll hospitalize. And we have had one that he was a bit too spicy to go into the hospital. He's recovered now, but I actually had to go to one of our other vets, and they gave me the metronidazole and some Cerenia and some bags of fluids, and we treated him in house. Like I have his bag of fluid hanging up, and he's just in my lap, but he pulled through that as well. So we have a really good relationship with a lot of our vets.
That's really interesting that you say that too, because, and I've learned this working on the wildlife side, you're not a veterinarian. Mm-mm. I'm not a veterinarian, but yet you got to have some of that veterinary medical knowledge.
You do.
And do you just learn that as you go, or did you have any specific training you had to do for that?
So honestly, when I was a child, I wanted to be a veterinarian. And I decided...
Didn't we all?
Well, yeah. I had started out high school. I was ready to go into that medicine program. And then right before I graduated, I decided I wouldn't be able to euthanize animals. And so I changed my major entirely, went through business administration. Mm-hmm. And so... But which ironically now I'm a certified animal euthanasia technician. Like I have a certification at the only thing I can do. But kind of your viewpoint changes. But growing up just on the farm, you kind of get a little bit of vaccinating animals and things of that nature. Through 4-H, I did a lot of vet science programs and things like that too as well.
Yeah, those natural science programs like FFA and 4-H and things that do those are fantastic programs. I wish we had more what's the right word for it? More interaction or more promotion of those type of programs, because they lead to careers you never would have thought you would have. So, so you bring up a good point. This is a question I was going to ask you in a little bit, but so I'm sure you get some of the heartbreaking cases, where you pick up a dog that, it just can't be helped no matter what the circumstances are, whether it's injury or attitude or like you said, spicy. So how do you prepare yourself for those heartbreaking cases? What do you and the staff do down there?
So if we do have an issue where we have to euthanize a dog, we will, we make it, the staff, I've told everyone, hey, this is an open discussion, but at the end of the day, it is my decision. Mm-hmm. That kind of takes a little bit of the weight off of them, but it is an open discussion. If we're going to bring these dogs to the table, if you have anything you will need to input, now's the time to do it. Mm-hmm. And we have changed our minds before, because I had one, the kennel tech came through, and he said, I'd like so much time to work with him. I think we can work through this, and he was successful. But if we do come to the decision where either behavioral or medical euthanasia is required, we come through, we talk about it, and if it comes to the decision, yes, we have to do this, then we schedule it with our veterinarian who's going to do it. That day, we normally bring in all the stuff that dog's not supposed to have, candy and pasta and all the fun things. Yeah. And then we spend the day in the yard if we can. Now, we've had some that are too dangerous to get with. They still get the candy and pasta, but we don't have the day in the yard. And then we, any staff member that wants to is welcome to go. I sign all the paperwork, the final things. None of them have to do it. I do it. Mm-hmm. And then we all go with them. We're all there at the end. We're all petting them. And it's very, people look at euthanasia like it's a bad word, but it's very peaceful, honestly. It's normally very quick, very... It's not the thing that people think it's going to be, but if we do have to do it, one of us is normally holding them, we're at least petting them, we're there with them, and they just kind of go to sleep.
Yeah, I would imagine anybody who's experienced having to go through putting down their pet, it's awful. I had to do it earlier this year with my big Great Pyrenees. Just unfortunately, the tumors got to a point where he couldn't handle it anymore, and he was struggling walking, and breathing was hard and all that. So, you have to. That's a heavy weight to decide. What's the suffering point that you're going to stop the suffering and look at this process. So, having and you said you take all of this on yourself. You do the signing, you do the final decision. How do you decompress? When you're off, when you don't have to make decisions like that. What do you do for fun?
When I'm off.
Obviously, Christmas is not on that list.
Well, my family will come in with me at Christmas. So my husband and child, and so
I know I've been to the adoption events too, and your family helps with that too.
They're at everything. Normally, I say child, he's 17, goes before me, and
always be a child, no matter how old they are.
Yeah. Sets up the tent, sets up the tables, and Will goes with him, and they've got all that ready, so I can go to the shelter and get the dogs. But so when we're not doing that, we play Minecraft.
Okay.
I'm still holding on to Minecraft.
Yeah.
The kid and I will do that a lot. I like to be outside. I like to mow. We've got a nice big property. I'll mow all of that. Do work in kind of got a memorial garden. I like to kind of keep that up, keep that
Right,
planted.
right.
And so just things outside, a lot of outdoor animals and
Yeah.
things of that
That's
nature.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's something that, being the city forester, I've really been pushing the memorial tree program because we do need to replace some of the trees we're removing. And recently, I purchased it myself. I put in a memorial tree for my dog that I lost earlier this year, out at the dog park. And so we've been promoting that too. It doesn't necessarily have to be for people, it can be for a pet
Right.
too. I'm glad that you do that too, because I even have a tree in my backyard I planted for a goat that passed away. So her name was Valentine. And so it's got a little stone with a heart on it. And, we put a tree right there next to it. So,
Well, I have one of my cat, like my main cat. I lost him July 3rd and 23, and he's in the garden.
Yeah.
So
that's cool. And I'm sure people out there do it too. If you have to bury a pet in the backyard, I think that's neat. I think they deserve the same type of send off, if you will, that people get. And, I think it's important too, because, that tree that, I planted one at home as well. And every morning when I get up, it's planted right next to the driveway. So I walk by it and I see it every day. And I think it's a cool reminder that, granted, trees are good. So I'm glad that I put a tree in the ground, but it also has a purpose for the family. I think that helps with a little bit of the closure.
And so I'm about to add to the garden. I've got some willows propagating right now, just waiting for it
very
to.
nice.
Yeah, I know they're not like the best tree, but I love willows.
Yeah.
And so
Plant what you like.
yeah, we're gonna. I know
Just
it's
no Bradford pears. Don't plant
no,
Bradford pears.
No, I won't plant Bradford pears. But I know it's not going to last forever, but that's just the one that I would like to have out there. So I've got them, and we'll fingers crossed that it works.
Yeah, that's I like dogwoods. So of course, dogwoods, dog tree, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So so that's what I planted was dogwoods. But at our dog park out there, it's nice, and it's got two big willow oaks in it, but it doesn't really have a lot of shade in the back part. And so that was the idea, was to promote, hey, you can put a dog, a memorial tree for your dog in the dog park too. And granted, we're going to run out of room eventually if people start doing that, but we need some shade back there. Like you said, if they can't get air conditioning, dogs like the shade too.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, good. Well, hang on. We got a couple other questions here. So the animal shelter obviously gets funding. Y'all are an arm of the police department, but funding is what it is. And eventually you do run out. So if people out there wanted to help the animal shelter with anything, what's a common thing that you guys need a lot?
So we have a really great community for that, honestly. When we come up to, and it varies different times of the year, what we're going to need. We have a partnership with a Hill Science Diet, so we can only feed hills
awesome.
inside. But we let everyone know if you want to donate food, that goes to our food pantry for people in need in the community, and we give that out. We do dog and cat food. Cat food when we have it. We have dog food more than cat food. But it's interesting that you asked that, because last week we needed water buckets. It's so hot. They're drinking them just as fast as we can make them. We can only freeze so much water to give them ice cubes and things like that. I posted up we needed water buckets. I cannot tell you how many hundreds of water buckets we have now. A box arrived yesterday with, I think, 75 in it.
Right.
Just the little 2.5 gallon buckets. I put up some links to Lowe's and Home Depot and Tractor Supply, and Tractor Supply donated some buckets. Right now, our big thing is fly prevention. Speaking of Tractor Supply, they donated a few of those, where we've got some in the old shelter. Flies are really, really bad this year. And I saw Coffee County was having trouble with flies as well in their shelter. But yeah, and this weekend, we actually had one of the businesses, they donated a lot of ice too, and so they had fun playing in the ice this weekend as well. So whenever we need something, I'll throw it up on Facebook. Just, hey, if you're in town, if you've got $5 extra and want to get us, like, pill pockets is a big thing to give medication in. The last time I did for milk bones, I think in 2 days we had about 600 pounds of milk bones delivered. So I'm still going through those, but we use a lot with the positive reinforcement training. Yeah. But I think right now we're low on pill pockets.
Okay. All right. You heard it. Low on pill pockets, Tullahoma. See what you can do. So when I was out there the other day, when I stopped by to talk about scheduling this with you, so I met a dog in the lobby there, and his name escapes me.
Curie.
Okay, and what was his story? What happened to him?
So Curie, he was brought in. This gentleman is incarcerated, and his brother went out to check on the dog. The dog had been out there for a week. They don't know. I think the neighbors had been watering him. Don't know when the gentleman will get out. So he brought the dog to us. he told me, he said, "Hey, he's not adoptable. I just need you to put him down." And I said, "Well, that's not a service that we provide. If you believe the dog needs to be humanely euthanized, you need to take him to your vet." And he said, "Look, this isn't my dog. It's my brother's dog. He's not getting out anytime soon. He's been outside on a chain for 11 years. He's not adoptable. I'm just going to go put him back on the chain." And I'm looking at this dog, and he has this mass hanging down from his stomach, and it has drugged the ground, and it looks like it's infected. I was like, give me the dog, give me the dog. And so we do the paperwork, we sign in, I take him, and we give him 2 medicated baths for his skin, and I've scheduled him with Lakeside. He had his surgery on the 11th. He was neutered, got his rabies up to date. He was heartworm negative. We checked that before we went into everything.
That's great. That's great.
The growths that were on him, he had a few like cysts, some lipomas, things that are benign, that are treatable, that are fixable. And so they did that surgery on the 11th. We had his sutures taken out, except for the really big one; those are embedded in. And he actually went to foster yesterday. So she sent me photos. I put them up on Facebook last night of him like licking his new foster mom, and as long as he gets along with that cat, we'll be good.
Yeah.
But she said the cat's just sitting there staring at him, like. But yeah,
probably judging her for taking on the dog, I would imagine.
But, and he would come in, and he was in the lobby so we could watch him with all the sutures and everything, and he would just sit under that air conditioning. And but for the first 2 weeks when he wore that cone, like we've all got bruises on our shins, he would wear you out with that thing. They just bulldoze right through when they've got those cones.
Yeah, that day that I met him, I think you told me that was the first day without the cone.
Yeah.
And so for somebody who said that the dog was not adoptable, I tell you, I met that dog, and if I didn't have 3 of my own, I would have taken him. He was so good, and he was so sweet.
Yeah, I believe he said it because of the medical reasons, which, was all very treatable, very fixable. People will see dogs with a lot of skin issues that oftentimes comes from fleas, whether they have an allergy or they're just kind of scratching, they're missing some hair, and they'll think, okay, this is going to be so much money at the vet, and I can't afford this.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's when we see dogs that get abandoned. And I wish people knew that, hey, it's actually not. It's very treatable. It's, get them on flea prevention, and then we do a few medicated baths, and normally you get rid of the fleas, and the hair grows back, the dog stops itching. It's great, and it's. I wish people knew how affordable it was, or programs that are out there to help with vet care that could prevent those things and keep those families together.
Well, and there's also I've seen them before. Tractor Supply is the one that comes to mind, where they do they'll do the spay and neuter clinics, they'll do the rabies vaccinations, and it's usually at a discounted rate at a central location. So you just show up with your dog, and then you go through the process, pay the fees, and they take care of it right there. So, and it's not expensive. I don't think it is.
I don't know exactly what Tractor Supply costs, but most of the local vets around, if you're doing at least the rabies, it's between $12 and $18 for the rabies for your annual.
Right, and that I think that's pretty approachable in just about any circumstance. So that's awesome, and I think. I hear an overarching theme here is that, you have the animal shelter and you're responsible for that, but you have made so many contacts and developed so many relationships with businesses in town, whether it's vet offices or retail locations that help with pets. That had to be a big task to do. Yeah.
So when we started, I had a lot of people tell me in the beginning that they weren't even sure that Tullahoma had an animal shelter. And I was like, well, we need to change that. So we do a lot of community events. We have one of our best cheerleaders is Rose at Tractor Supply.
Yeah.
Everybody loves Rose. She comes through and she's always texting me, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? And she'll get it. She recently fostered to adopt a dog. She's named him Hank. It was Bashful. And she called me almost in tears one night. She's like, he's beautiful and I love him. And so that's really special to us because we've built that relationship with Rose and everything, and now she's got one of the dogs. We work with, like I said, PetSmart. I was taking my personal dog the other day. I took off to take him to the vet. He had I'd actually adopted him from the shelter. And heartworms have a 6-month incubation period where we had him at the shelter. We tested him. He was negative. We adopted him, and then he goes for his annual. He's positive, even though he'd been on prevention. It was just an incubation. Wow. But so he's finished his treatment and everything. He was going for his annuals and just that final test to make sure he's negative. But while I was there, they asked if we wanted to come in and do an adoption event, possibly in the fall with them as well. So it's just kind of meeting everybody. And different members of the staff have different, I guess, levels of upbeatness in people that they'll vibe with. You may
Right.
not know, but I'm very introverted. But for the dogs, I will talk to anyone. So
I can relate to that. I mean, I love you people out there, but I love animals more than I love people. I'm just going to say that publicly. So,
yeah.
but not in a bad way. I mean, I think. So you mentioned you have a personal dog as well. We all have pets, and I think everybody has a relationship with their personal pets. And so I have, unfortunately, several. I know you've got several too. But I do. I find myself relating more with my birds and my, 3 dogs, 1 cat, 4 goats. We have all that stuff, and
Yeah.
I relate with them almost better than I do with people some days, and that's hard in my job because I'm the community engagement officer. But sometimes the community that I want to be involved with is my animals. Mm-hmm. And so, how does your dog handle? You're around 100 dogs every day. How does your dog handle that?
So I have 8 dogs.
Okay. So they're used to the crowd. Then.
Yeah, they're fine. So, and it you may call me mad, but we have our home is sectioned off in gates. So we have certain smaller dogs that they get along with the big dogs, but I have a 4-pound Chihuahua, and then I have an 80-pound Doberman. The Doberman steps on the Chihuahua, he's going to break her leg. So even though they really want to love each other, we have to keep them separated. So small dogs are in this room. And then, unfortunately, when the Doberman's the one that had heartworms, well, at the same time, I had taken a dog from the shelter, Shogun. He is a Rottweiler, and he had hip dysplasia. He was a year old, and he needed...
Wow, at a year old, hip dysplasia. Wow.
Yeah, so bad. He was in so much pain. And the surgery was... about $6,000 for one option, and the other option was $14,000. Obviously, the city cannot take on that burden.
Sure.
The option would be to euthanize for medical reasons. But this dog was just so full of life and so young, and it broke my heart. So I adopted him. Well, he comes home. The Doberman and the Rottweiler, they're fine. And then the Doberman goes on prednisone for the heartworm treatment, and that's a steroid. And something in him clicked. He's like, I feel bad. This is your fault. And so he now does not like the Rottweiler. So there goes another gate in the house. So we have to keep him up. And we're actually working on building a different room with a doggy door so he can, we can kind of separate off who goes. So everyone goes in different rounds in my house. We've got a dog that's dog aggressive, also from the shelter. He actually has his own 20 by 40 room in the basement outside, and then doggy door to come inside, and he's got a 10 by 20 inside. So he goes in and out, but he has to be on a different level than everybody else. So that's kind of crazy, but it works. So when I come home...
Of all people, I fully understand where you're going with this.
Yeah, of course you do. So I come home, and first thing, the Doberman runs to me, and I have to stop in the door. He gets to sniff my pants every day. He's just, and you can hear him. Just
Who'd you get in today, Mom? Who'd you get in today?
Yeah, it's like, where have you been? Who is it? And he just, and if he finds, and some days, we have diseases and stuff, and so I'll call ahead. I'll be like, hey, Flint, I've been exposed to this. Get everybody out. I'm going to make a straight line from the kitchen to the utility room, and I have to throw everything in the wash. And those days drive Tucker crazy because he has missed his chance to sniff of whatever I've done.
That's what, I mean, like I said, I fully understand. We have to keep the goats and the dogs separate most of the time. Sometimes we can let them out together, but then... chaos ensues some days, and they'll chase each other, and then, a goat will headbutt a dog, and then the dog will chase the goat. And, so a lot of times it's just easier to keep them separate. So,
yeah, our big one is the Rottweiler. He can see my turkey, Ethel, and he doesn't know what she is. He just knows he wants over there, and he will just sit in the corner of his fence, and he will, like when he's outside, and he will just cry. I'm like, Shogun, you're going to have to go back inside. You can only be outdoors if you can behave. And he just cries at Ethel, and she squeaks back at him. And I'm like, I don't know if you want to play or if you want to eat, but we're not going to find out.
Yeah, and we didn't name the turkey Thanksgiving, so so that the turkey's a pet. Well, so you've got an opportunity for the 22,000-ish Tullahomans out there that may be listening. So is there anything you'd like to leave them with about the Tullahoma Animal Shelter?
Come out, foster, adopt. If you've got a need, we can meet it. I mean, we have enough dogs. We can meet it. We can match you with somebody. We don't got a lot of small dogs, but again, we have a lot of community support. We love our community. It's great. It's amazing when I ask for anything, how everybody steps up and comes out. And then we get people, they follow us on Facebook. That's where you're going to get the most information is from our Facebook. Our dogs have fans. We take them out and they're like, oh, there's Buster. And I saw him on Facebook. So just even if you can adopt, come out and say hi, meet the dogs. It helps with their socialization. It's wonderful. So and always, I'll leave you with your tagline, but
no, actually I was going to, if you want to offer the closing, Bob Barker sign off today, you're probably the most qualified person to do that. So.
No, I can do it, and I'd like to add it. So if you have pets, please spay and neuter, or come see me, and I can give you one that's already spayed and neutered.
That's awesome. Well, thank you very much for being here today. It's been great talking with you.
Great with you.
Yeah, in Tullahoma, you have your call to action. So come out to the Tullahoma Animal Shelter. Come see Cheryl. Come meet the dogs. Come meet Chris and David. And you have a new employee,
Tracy. And then we also are getting a new kennel tech. It should be posted soon, and that will be a weekend position.
Okay, great. So the staff out there does a great job taking care of these animals, and so you can do your part too and come out, socialize with them, support the animal shelter staff and the animals that they take care of. So with that, I think we'll call it a day. Cheryl, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Awesome. Have a great day, Tullahoma. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.